Hello, my name is Jan Dash. I'm an attorney in St. Kitts and Nevis. The name of my law firm is Dash and Associates, and it's comprised of myself and my wife, Kaylee Perez. You may find us at dashattorneys.com, and you may also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm here today to talk to you about how you may establish an international bank in Nevis. My presentation is going to cover 6 general subjects: St. Kitts and Nevis, international banking in Nevis, how to establish an international bank, the operational environment, restrictions, and then we're going to summarize. So on this slide, you can see 2 maps. The map on the right-hand side has a map of the entire Caribbean region, and the upper left-hand corner of the map on the right, you can see Miami. At the bottom, you can see the north coast of South America, and halfway between Miami and the north coast of South America, you can see the twin island nation of St. Kitts and Nevis. If you come over to the left, you'll see a more detailed map of St. Kitts and Nevis. And Nevis is the southernmost island of the two, and it's shaped almost circular. Now, the full name of our country is the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, but it's shortened to St. Kitts and Nevis. We received our independence from Great Britain in 1983, and as a result of being a British colony, the basis of our law is the common law of England, which is also the basis of the law of the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and anywhere in the world that speaks English. We're the home of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, which is the currency that is used throughout the Caribbean region by the English-speaking countries. We have a constitution, and the federal law, known as acts, govern the entire country. Nevis has its own executive and legislative branches, and the legislative branches is allowed to promulgate ordinances, and we're going to discuss those in a second. The Nevis government is known as the Nevis Island Administration, and it's currently headed by a gentleman named Mark Brantley, who's the Premier and Minister of Finance. He's assisted in his capacity as Minister of Finance by a gentleman named Colin Dorr. The legal advisor to the Nevis Island government is Ms. Helene Lewis. The regulator of financial services, or chair of financial services, is Ms. Heidi Lynn Sutton, and Phil Jones is the regulator of international banking. Since independence, Nevis has enacted several laws, which has allowed us to become a international financial services center. We're not going to discuss those laws today. We're going to discuss banking, but generally we have a corporations law, a companies law, a trust law, an insurance law, a foundations law, and of course a banking law. Before we talk about what international banking is, let's talk about what international banking is not. So there's a domestic banking law, which is called the Banking Act, which is, of course, is a federal law, and it allows the establishment of Bank of Nevis and 2 other banks. These are banks which are designed for the local population. There's a Development Bank Act, and it allows for the establishment of a development bank, which is the bank which finances large infrastructure projects. And of course, there's an international banking ordinance, which is a law of Nevis, and it has established the 6 banks which are referenced on screen: Bank of New Innovation, HRB, International Merchant Bank, Sovereign Bank, SPC, and Sun Bank. These are the headquarters of all of the banks of Nevis. Here's Bank of New Innovation and HRB, International Merchant Bank, Sovereign Bank, and Sun Bank. You'll notice that SBC is missing because as of the recording of this video, they have not yet established operations. Now, international banks are registered under the Nevis International Banking Ordinance, and as such, they're prevented from using the Eastern Caribbean dollar, which is the monetary unit which is used throughout the Caribbean, and they're also prevented from conducting transactions with St. Kitts Nevis residents. Myself, I'm a St. Kitts Nevis resident. I couldn't open an account at any of these banks. But Nevis registered entities, companies, corporations, trusts, and foundations are allowed to. An international bank must either be a qualified foreign bank or an eligible company. A qualified foreign bank is basically a subsidiary of a bank which is incorporated in another jurisdiction and is subject to regulation in that other jurisdiction. An eligible company is a bank which is going to be unique to Nevis and is incorporated under the local law, and the CEO or the people in management of the bank have at least 10 years experience in banking and finance. An eligible company, again, is incorporated under the local law, and it has to use the word bank in its name, and it must obtain approval. A qualified foreign bank is registered as an external company under the local law, meaning it's already incorporated in another jurisdiction. It just registers here as a company. And it must prove that it's subject to regulation under the foreign jurisdiction. I can tell you that all of the banks which I referenced earlier are all eligible companies. None are qualified foreign banks. An international bank must have at least 3 directors, and there must be 1 St. Kitts Nevis citizen and resident. The shareholder can be a corporation, and any non-nationals of St. Kitts Nevis who are directors, shareholders, or the owners of the shareholder corporation must obtain approval from financial services, and they must obtain approval via an alien landholding license. The reason banks in Nevis and international banks in Nevis have become so attractive is because of the low capitalization amount. The capitalization requirement for an international bank is $2 million, which may seem like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but when you're talking about capitalizing a bank, it's not that much money. You must also make a purchase and hold treasury bills, bonds, or debentures of at least $200,000 in a local account or an approved foreign account. And there must be a reserve fund of 25% of net profits before any dividend is paid. All banks must have a physical presence in Nevis. At the option of the bank, you could either rent or purchase a location. I can tell you that the majority of the banks which I referenced earlier, the majority of them rent. If the owner wants to buy a piece of property and build a building in order to house their bank, that could be used as a basis to apply for St. Kitts Nevis citizenship. In the last couple of years, last 10 to 15 years, St. Kitts Nevis has become very popular for citizenship by investment. The benefit of having a St. Kitts Nevis citizenship, the citizen of St. Kitts Nevis is allowed to go to Europe, the Schengen area of Europe, visa-free. So that could be an additional benefit to establishing a bank here in St. Kitts Nevis or in Nevis. The application, again, the application needs to address, is it a eligible company or is it a qualified foreign bank? It needs to talk about the type of banking that it proposes to do in Nevis. It needs to present copies of its corporate documents, provide details of its directors and shareholders. And again, if there's a corporate shareholder, any person who is an ultimate beneficial owner of that corporate shareholder, the qualifications of anybody involved in senior management. Compliance is a very important thing as well. A compliance officer needs to be appointed and approved. There needs to be information provided about how customer information will be secured and any other information that the regulator may require in order to approve the bank. The application must be accompanied with a business plan. Now, a business plan is obviously a multi-year projection of proposed operation and marketing plans. There is no set time, but it's generally about 3 to 5 years, a 3 to 5 year projection of how the bank is going to operate going forward. It needs to address investment policies and lending policies, the source of its initial and future capital, its know your client policies, how many employees it potentially is going to have, an org chart showing how it's going to be governed and lines of reporting, and any information about any subsidiaries or affiliate companies or persons involved. Since most banking in today's world is done via internet, the business plan needs to include information about internet banking, how customer information will be protected, where the servers will be located, any outsourcing of business functions. It's probably a good idea to choose December 31st as your financial year end because licenses expire as of December 31st. Uh, Disaster contingency plans. The Caribbean is subject to hurricanes, and the bank must be allowed to continue in the event of a hurricane. So there needs to be some planning made with regards to that. The Basel Committee principles is the standard for corporate governance with regards to banks, and any application or business plan needs to address the Committee principles with regards to internal governance, risk management, anti-money laundering. Um, it's how it's going to manage and identify conflicts of interest. The Minister of Finance must approve or deny an application within 3 months of receipt, but as a general matter, it may take more time if more information is required, if the application is incomplete. The regulator is going to conduct an examination on any director, shareholders, and ultimate beneficial owners to ensure that they're fit and proper persons to be involved with a bank which is going to be licensed by Nevis. Banking licenses must expire at the end of the year and must be renewed by the 31st of January of the next year. The initial and annual banking license fee is $100,000. The government, the NIA, will not impose any taxes on anything else, and that's the only fee that the bank has to pay to the government is on an annual basis is $100,000. We charge for importing things into St. Kitts Nevis, but a bank may apply and be granted an exemption from import duty, but that'll be determined on a case by case basis. Once the license is approved, monthly statements of assets and liabilities must be submitted to the regulator. A quarterly return must be submitted, and the regulator may do periodic examinations of the bank. An annual audit must be done by an independent auditor, and that report must be sent to shareholders and the regulator within 3 months of the end of the financial year. And a copy of the report must be displayed at the bank's office in Nevis. St. Kitts Nevis is a member of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, which includes Antigua Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Anguilla, and Montserrat. And any person who is employed by the bank who is a citizen of any of those countries or territories would not have to obtain a work permit. Any other person would have to obtain a work permit, obviously. The employer must make contributions to Social Security, and if a specially qualified person needs to be employed by the bank and that person cannot be found within the OECS, that person may obviously be employed, and they may be paid a salary in non-Eastern Caribbean dollars, and they may be paid that money outside of St. Kitts Nevis. There are several restrictions on banking activities. mostly designed to ensure that the bank remains solvent and doesn't cheat its customers. The bank cannot pay a dividend if it would allow the bank to become insolvent. It cannot give an advance greater than 40% of its assets. It cannot grant unsecured advances greater than $40,000 US or 1% of its stated capital. It cannot grant credit facilities on more favorable terms to its directors, subsidiaries, and affiliates. And it cannot give an officer or an employee an unsecured advance greater than 1 year's salary. Other restrictions on banking activities include it cannot engage in trade, import, or export equal to 20% of stated capital. It cannot invest in an entity if the value is greater than 10% of its stated capital, and it cannot acquire real estate if the market value is less than stated capital. To summarize how to establish an international bank in Nevis, you must either incorporate a local company or register a qualified foreign bank as an external company. You must apply for a banking license with a business plan, rent office space or buy a permanent location, commence operations within 6 months of approval. The annual requirements include renewing your banking license before the 31st of January of the next year, submit an annual audited report to Nevis Financial Services, hold an annual general meeting, submit monthly statements, and submit quarterly reports to financial services. The costs, as you can see on screen, the costs are pretty low, except for the banking license of $100,000. More costs. Again, this is an estimate. We estimate that a bank can be established for approximately $135,000. Approximately. It's probably going to be a little bit greater. I don't think it's going to be less. With regards to annual costs, again, the big ticket item is going to be the banking license, and we estimate that the annual cost will probably be about $175,000, and that includes the work permits, office rental, overhead, Social Security, and property tax. Again, my name is Jan Dash. I'm an attorney in Nevis. Thank you for listening to my presentation. If you'd like assistance in establishing an international bank in Nevis or any assistance on the laws of Nevis, please feel free to contact me. My information is on the screen, and you may also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.